And we had a fantastic example in the book. A woman, Susan Bernstein, she was a real name. She was a consultant out in San Francisco. She'd gone to Harvard, gotten her MBA, was hired by a big consulting firm. She came in, and she was told her first assignment, your assignment is to go to that meeting and just notice. Come back with what you notice. She went to the meeting. She came back to her team. What did you notice? Well, the first thing I noticed is that the two partners on this are at each other's throats, and their staffs are as well. And what was the response? That's not what you were supposed to notice. You're not an HR consultant. You're a business consultant. That's what we hired you for. What did you notice about what the numbers said and what was presented at that meeting? That's what we want you to notice. And what did Susan do? Now, this is a tough gal, a big girl, a Harvard MBA. She had had experience in the workforce before she came in, and she thought, oh boy, I blew it. I'm going to get better at noticing what they tell me to notice and turn off that radar. She said, I stayed with that firm for 9 years, and by the time I left, I had almost lost my noticing capacity because I was so focused on adapting to the culture. It was a loss for her. It made her feel less authentic. Think about this when you're thinking about some of the younger women in your organization. Made her feel less authentic, less like she could make a contribution based on what she was best at, but it was also a loss to her organization. And in fact, many of you won't be surprised to learn that the whole project blew up. 6 months later, why? Because the partners were at each other's throats. Many organizations don't really have a way of encompassing, honoring, and acknowledging the importance of that multiple or broad spectrum notice. And part of our responsibility is to bring that in and make that a valued capacity, and I believe we're at a great point for that. Right after the book came out, I read an interview, cover story in Fortune with Jeff Immelt, the chair and CEO of GE, and he was asked, what is the #1 leadership capacity that GE is going to be looking for and training for in the years ahead? And he said the #1 leadership capacity is the ability to see around the corners. Not analytical ability, the ability to see around the corners. That's what Jeff Immelt said, and I thought, bravo. How can you see around the corners if you only have focused notice? You need that broad spectrum notice. So given the complexity and the rapidity of change of the environment that we are part of, that capacity for broad spectrum notice, I would suggest to you, can be as important to our progress as leaders and as mentors to the next generation as skill with relationships leading from the center, et cetera, was for the last 20 years. I want to stop for a moment, take a couple questions, observations, hear what your thoughts are in terms of that. I think we're mic ready in terms of the audience. And then I'll go on and share the second insight. But that, I think, is going to be a big, what Tom Peters calls a big, hairy idea in the years going forward, is the role, the capacity, the richness, and the value of broad spectrum notice.